So, I started this new series a few weeks ago called Review Rewind, where I replay games I reviewed like a decade ago and I see if I like them more or less or about the same. Space Invaders Extreme was a game I was planning on covering since it came out in 2008 and I haven't played it in years. But before I had a chance to dig out the UMD and charge up my PSP, Degica decided to port the game to the PC. Now it's back, looking and sounding better than ever. But here's the question. In a world filled with remakes, reboots, and rip-offs, does this decade-old Space Invaders revival feel more antiquated than extreme? I'm gonna level with you, I was never a huge Space Invaders fanatic. Look, I appreciate its importance on the shoot-'em-up genre and understand why people love it, but by the time I got around to playing it, I was already used to newer, faster shooters like R-Type and Gradius. I also wasn't a big fan of Taito's various sequels and reboots, including that one time they tried to turn Space Invaders into a third-person shooter. But in 2008, all that changed. The moment I played Space Invaders Extreme on the PSP, I went from respecting this series from afar to being a die-hard fan. Of course, a lot has changed in the last 10 years, especially when it comes to retro resurrections. These days it's common to see both official and indie-developed reboots getting a lot of attention, thanks in large part to the success of games like this. I started to wonder if this game I loved would seem almost quaint compared to what we're getting today. Could it be that Space Invaders Extreme is no longer as extreme as it once was? The simple answer is no. This game is as much fun today as it was all those years ago. It's an intoxicating remix that takes the flavors of the original game and then pumps it with so many fresh ideas that it's almost unrecognizable. And yet somehow they manage that impossible task of creating a shoot-'em-up that feels completely new and original while simultaneously resembling the 40-year-old arcade game that started it all. Space Invaders Extreme starts out like any other classic shooter. You're a small triangular spaceship that sits at the bottom of the screen and then moves left and right. Above you, or rather in front of you, are row after row of space aliens, all working their way to the bottom of the screen. It lulls you into a full sense of familiarity before yanking that rug out. This is a game that just keeps getting crazier the longer you play, and I love every second of the chaos. Now, you're essentially doing the same thing that arcade gamers did back in 1978, only this time around the rules have changed in dramatic ways. There are a bunch of power-ups, all kinds of bonus stages, video footage playing in the background, and massive boss fights at the end of every level. Just about the only thing that hasn't changed is the actual Space Invader. You know, the little pixel enemy guy that menaces Earth from the sky. But don't be fooled by their appearance, because this time around the aliens come in all kinds of different colors and sizes. Before the end of the game, you'll run into gigantic aliens, tiny aliens, green aliens, red aliens, shielded aliens, and so many more. Instead of just dropping power-ups randomly, Space Invaders Extreme rewards you for shooting 4 aliens of the same color in a row. These weapons are the highlight and do a good job of making you feel like a real badass. There are few things more satisfying than watching that blue laser cut through all those invaders like they're made out of cotton candy. It's the kind of thing that reminds you how cool a 2D shoot-'em-up can be. So when I reviewed the game back in 2008, my sole complaint was the short length. It's true, Space Invaders Extreme can be beaten in around an hour, but it's designed to be played over and over to get through all the paths. This brand new PC version also adds a world ranking system to the arcade mode, giving you even more incentive to keep playing and beating your scores. Speaking of which, we can't go this entire review without mentioning the improved graphics and sound. What you may not remember is that Space Invaders Extreme was developed as a handheld game for both the Nintendo DS and the Sony PlayStation Portable. It was later ported to the Xbox 360, where it used to be the best looking version on the market. Now I say used to because this PC remaster blows the other versions away. The graphics are sharp, smooth, and messy in all the right ways. That said, with so much happening all the time, it's a little too easy for the bullets to blend into the background. That's a problem I had with the game both in 2008 and today. Although it doesn't feel nearly as intense as it did 10 years ago, Space Invaders Extreme still provides a lot of straightforward shoot-'em-up thrills. I love what they've done to the classic arcade game, and I still can't get enough of that high-energy soundtrack. This brand new PC port looks fantastic and is easy to get into, even if you're not generally a fan of the genre. Space Invaders Extreme is another great example of Degica bringing some of the best shooters of all time to the PC. Hey, thanks for watching our review. So here's the question of the day. What's your favorite video game reboot of all time? And remember, I'm looking for a reboot, not a remake or sequel. I can't wait to read your picks in the comments below. So remember how I mentioned Review Rewind at the top of this review? Well, I'm going to be posting a brand new episode of Review Rewind in just a couple of hours. We're also just a couple of days away from Monday's premiere of Game Over, the early years. We have a busy month lined up, so I recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.